April 15th, 1942. I went down to Churt today to see Mr. Lloyd George, one of our wise old men. He's 79. I said to him over lunch, "If you'd been my age, we shouldn't have been in this mess." "Oh," he said with a twinkle, "I could have been older than that." He had a double tooth out last week, or rather a bottom tooth with a double root, which had been troublesome. I reminded him that he's a remarkable man and must expect to have remarkable teeth. I asked him if he'd had it out with a local anaesthetic. He said, "Oh no, I always have gas. I prefer oblivion." He told me he was running 2 farms. I said, "Can you make them pay?" He said, "Oh yes, if it weren't for the income tax. I have a new orchard, and of course with an orchard you don't get anything from it for the first few years. Now that it's begun to be fruitful, they call it excess profits." I said, "I suppose you taught them how to do it," meaning when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer. He said, "Oh no, I always made allowances for improvements, improved machinery and so on." He keeps very well abreast of events. On the table in his study were half a dozen daily papers and a number of up-to-date books, including, bless 'em all, a critical book about the army by a serving soldier. During lunch, typescripts of the 1 o'clock news was brought to him, part of which he read out to me, saying, "This about Laval is by far the most important news today. By far the most important. I don't know what's going to happen to the French fleet." We discussed many things, among them the beginning of the war, Poland, the Prime Minister, India and Russia. I mentioned our paucity of aircraft in certain theatres of war that I'd visited, and I said I'd never yet understood how, after the beginning to rearm in 1936, we came to have only a few hundred aircraft of all kinds in France when Hitler broke through the Low Countries in the spring of 1940. "There's a mystery there that I don't understand," I said. "Yes," he said, "we had spent 1,500 million, and if 2,000 million had been required, the country would have provided it." I reminded him that he was a bit of a Lancashire man, since he'd been born in Manchester. He smiled and said, "Yes, I have the same feeling when I go to Manchester as when I go to Wales. I never have it when I go to Birmingham." He asked me what my last book was, and he said, "I still think Grey Dawn, Red Night is the best." I recommended him to read Corduroy and Silver Lay by Adrian Bell. I signed his visitor's book, and I left him just before he went for his afternoon sleep, which I believe he's been taking whether at home, in trains or on ships since he was 40 years old. He said, "You may find yourself joining that second front." I travelled down to Churt first class. Both going and coming, there were more third-class passengers than first in the compartment. Private soldiers with their kit barged in without any apology. 2 officers, one naval, one military, looked rather uncomfortable but said nothing. I'm all in favour of privates travelling first class where there's no room in third class. But there was certainly room today. Is this a minor sign of indiscipline? I wonder. The war is 2.5 years old, and discipline did not improve in the last war as time dragged on. Nothing less than strict discipline is good enough for an armed force.